Do you guys remember a franchise called Twisted Metal? Guys, this was a franchise that was absolutely awesome on the PlayStation 2, and it spans back to 1995, and that's when this franchise first started. And all of a sudden, guys, we kind of saw this franchise pretty much just die out of nowhere, and there was talks that this franchise was going to continue at one point or another. And so in this segment of the show, guys, I want to talk about what happened to Twisted Metal, and is this a franchise that we will ever see return in the foreseeable future? So let's talk about it. Like I said, guys, really what we have to, in order for us to kind of predict the future, we got to look at the past. And like I said, Twisted Metal came out in 1995, and actually it came out on the PlayStation and PC. Now this, guys, was a PlayStation exclusive from pretty much the very beginning. Now I never got into I didn't get into Twisted Metal until it was on the PlayStation 2. So that's kind of like when I remember this franchise. I wasn't even really playing video games back in 1995, but that being said, we had Twisted Metal in 1995, and then Twisted Metal 2 in 96, Twisted Metal 3 in 98, and then 4 in 1999. So you had like pretty much a back-to-back years, so for those stretch of those 4 games, guys, you had pretty much games almost every single year. Twisted Metal Black came out in 2001, followed by Twisted Metal Head On in 2005. And then a few years after that, you had Twisted Metal Head On Extra Twisted Edition in 2008. And then our very last addition to the franchise, not considering, the spin-off games and canceled games at this point, we had Twisted Metal in 2012, which was kind of like a resurgence, right? And from that point onwards, we never really saw anything, guys, at that point. Now, we did have some spin-offs. We had Twisted Metal Small Brawl, which came out in 2001, Twisted Metal Black Online in 2002, and then the games that got canceled, which we had 3 of those. So 3 Twisted Metal cancellations. One of those was Twisted Metal Harbor City, which was a sequel to the PlayStation 2 game Twisted Metal Black, titled Twisted Metal Harbor City was in development but was canceled before it was announced when the series co-creators left the development team. At time of cancellation, 4 levels had been completed. These levels were included and playable in Twisted Metal Head On Extra Twisted Edition as a special mode. And then, of course, this was followed by Twisted Metal Apocalypse, which, look, guys, the way you got to look at this is that we only had one game, one of the Twisted Metal games, on PlayStation 3. That's all we had, guys. It came out in 2012, and so Twisted Metal Apocalypse was going to be on the PlayStation 3, a Twisted Metal game set in post-apocalyptic environment, which was originally in development in 2008 but was scrapped. Artwork of the canceled game was released by David Jaffe at the San Diego Comic-Con International. It showcased concept arts of locations such as a destroyed Mount Rushmore, as well as a giant crater. It was also revealed that the Eat Sleep Play team was originally rather keen on the idea, though it was hinted by Jaffe that the idea was rejected by Sony Computer Entertainment, speculated to be because of the release of MotorStorm Apocalypse, a racing game which also featured a post-apocalyptic environment. And so that's really unfortunate. I mean, that right there is so unfortunate, because Twisted Metal, guys, you would think this would have precedence over MotorStorm, but it didn't. And then, of course, this followed Twisted Metal Revolution, guys. So this was the third and final canceled game. Apart from Twisted Metal Apocalypse, another Twisted Metal game was in development for the PlayStation 3, which utilized street culture and hip-hop influence. The game was titled Twisted Metal Revolution, but it was canceled. It would have featured characters with a more realistic look, such as a Sweet Tooth that looked more of a smooth criminal rather than a psychotic clown or a psychopathic clown. Other characters included Yakuza, FBI agents, and street gang members. David Jaffe compared the game to Rockstar's Midnight Club series when describing the look and feel of the game. In addition, Jaffe said that it was extremely difficult to portray the environments that they had created in their concept art within the game, as it resulted in an extremely bland environment. So, at the end of the day, guys, I think that there was just development problems. Let's put it that way. I really think that this team there were just problems there. And I know that David Jaffe, he was there basically from the beginning, but there were just issues with this development team, it seems. Like lots of guys maybe leaving. They were just so on and so forth. It was just they couldn't really get what they wanted out of the development team and out of the game, that they obviously are canceling them. Or, Sony probably thought that they just weren't good enough maybe. Obviously, if Sony is going to go ahead and kind of push Twisted Metal Apocalypse to the side and bring out MotorStorm Apocalypse out instead of it, that kind of raises some significant red flags. Now, of course, that's a speculation, but according to an IGN article, guys, written by Shabana Arif, David Jaffe's studio, the Bartlett Jones Supernatural Detective Agency, has shut down in the wake of a canceled project. Jaffe, who has previously helped create God of War and Twisted Metal, which both made IGN's list of top 100 PlayStation 2 games, tweeted about layoffs at the studio last month after the project it was working on was canceled. And he tweeted out saying, "Wanted y'all to hear it from me before anyone else. We've had a project canceled and have been forced to lay off the vast majority of the Bartlett Jones staff gaming division. More news to come, but for now, that's what's up. Hearts breaking for the amazingly talented crew that's out of work." So this is pretty much that was probably like the last straw, guys. I mean, the question is will we ever see, Twisted Metal return? At this point, it's hard to say if we would ever see it return. I don't think that it's necessarily completely something that definitely wouldn't happen, because I believe Sony still owns those rights, so they would maybe just have a different developer work on it. I think that it's ridiculous. It's crazy to me that Twisted Metal has not continued. I think it's definitely a franchise that deserves to coexist in gaming at this point, and I think people would love it on the next gen consoles. But that's just me, and it just seems like they've had a lot of these games canceled. And at the end of the day, guys, you can only do that so long before Sony or whoever that publisher is going to pull the plug completely from under you. Jaffe confirmed the studio's subsequent closure to GamesBeat, saying, "Yeah, it's all true. I'm afraid just the nature of the beast. We had a cool game going with a publisher, and as that game is no longer happening, and since all of our funding came from publishers, we just couldn't keep the place going. It was a fantastic ride, however. I so loved our team and loved working with that crew and remain crazy proud of what we created with Drawn to Death. Excited to see where we all land after what has been one of the very best working experiences of my career thus far." So obviously, guys, they might not have been working on another Twisted Metal game. They might have been working on something else, but it's just the fact of the matter that it shut down and they had to close their doors. And that just kind of, it's really sad, number one, because people are losing their jobs, and that's a horrible thing. But it's also that we might not see Twisted Metal now. We might not see a continuation of it unless Sony decides, or whoever really owns the rights at this point, decide to let someone else have a chance. And that's something that I have my doubts about, that somebody else would get they would give the rights to someone else. Maybe they would. I mean, it happens all the time in gaming, but I believe that this is a franchise that deserves to coexist with gaming. Like I said, guys, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, come on, let's be real. This is a franchise that was a lot of fun. I think people had a ton of fun playing this franchise, and I think that it would be popular to this day if they were to continue it with updated graphics and on the next gen consoles. I think it could be something really special. But ultimately, guys, this is another one of those franchises. This is a franchise that's definitely in a limbo state, or it's, on the back burner at this point for Sony. It's up to us as a community. If you really want this game to come out, if you're a huge Twisted Metal fan, you got to voice your opinion to the developer, not so much the developer, but more the publisher, that being Sony, stating that you want a Twisted Metal game made. And guys, movements are really what help make games come out. They really, with many different franchises, guys, a lot of times developers will want to make games or continuations to their franchises, but it really comes down to what the fan base wants. If the fan base doesn't want another game in the franchise, they very well might not do it unless it was incredibly successful. So Twisted Metal is one of those games that might be a niche game at this point in time, and so they're just probably waiting for enough people to say, hey, let's make a Twisted Metal game, and then that gets developers talking. The rights go to a developer, and then there you go. You're off to the races, essentially. So I think, guys, that's a really important thing when it comes to any type of getting a franchise rebooted, or, you know, a franchise continued, is really us as a community have to come together and tell that to the publishers and the developers. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think happened to Twisted Metal? I mean, you guys heard from me what I think. I think it was a number of cancellations on top of the closing of, you know, the Bartlett Jones, studios. And it's really, you know, unfortunate that those things happened, that all these games got canceled. I just think there were development problems, guys, with some of these games. There were issues within the studio itself, and it's really unfortunate, but that's just, you know, sometimes what happens with gaming. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and for more Twisted Metal content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.